What's your name?
Kunta Kinte.
What's your name?
Kunta Kinte.
It's a voice rarely heard, the voice of a formerly enslaved person. Few know that in the decades following emancipation, interviews were done in an effort to preserve their stories. And in tonight's Prime Focus, you'll hear some of what they said as part of our partnership with the 10 Million Names Project. ABC's Alex Perche brings us their stories in their words.
I want you to tell me how you got your name.
I got my name from President Jeff Davis. He was president of the Southern Confederation. He owned my grandfather and my father. My grandfather was a blacksmith, and my father had learned how to write a little bit in Richmond, Virginia before he brought him down there.
You're listening to the voice of a formerly enslaved American, a man by the name of George Johnson. This rare and historic audio interview was recorded in 1941, almost 80 years after Mr. Johnson gained his freedom. He and his family worked on a plantation in Virginia owned by Confederate leader Jefferson Davis, a staunch opponent of abolition. In the interview, Johnson recalls a day in the life as an enslaved person.
Did they drive the slaves down there in Davis's Bend very hard, or did they work them reasonable?
Reasonable. You know, Master Joe gave my Jeff another boy, and boy was chopping cotton. Boy didn't kill, but you gang, you understand? He would come to hook the boy kill, you understand? That's the house of Master Joe boy. And that's what's the trouble, son. Say, Mr. Don't hook me, because I would kill the gang.
Audio tape interviews like this are striking and uncommon, but are actually part of a long legacy of black families, communities, and institutions, including historically black colleges and universities, that lead the way in collecting and preserving the oral histories of the formerly enslaved people in the 19th and 20th centuries. In the 1930s and beyond, technology allowed some of these interviews to be recorded as part of both federal and independent projects. The details are often difficult to hear, but they remind us this history happened not too long ago, with names, faces, and stories.
Do we know roughly how many of these recordings exist?
The recordings are relatively rare, but the recordings come from a much larger and really important and in many ways unsung collecting effort that took place. In terms of audio technology, most of it was not recorded by audio because the technology didn't exist, or at least in any kind of widespread accessible way when most of those were conducted. So it's really just a handful of audio recordings we have.
In 1974, a woman named Celia Black, at the age of 114 years old and shortly before her death, recalled picking cotton in Texas as a child born into slavery.
I didn't have to pick cotton or nothing.
I didn't do nothing but work in the field. Worked in the field, oh goodness. Me and my husband would go out west and pick cotton. Go out west every year. We've been this year going out there picking cotton.
One of the things that kind of struck me when you have an interview recorded in 1974, for some black Americans, I mean, they're one generation removed from slavery.
In some ways, we think of slavery as ancient history. We think of it as something that happened a very long time ago to people we couldn't possibly have known. I was 6, 7 years old in 1974. So it's kind of amazing that we were alive at the same time. I was alive at the same time who was someone who had been born enslaved.
Alex Haley's Roots premiered on ABC just 3 years after this interview with Celia Black.
What's your name?
Kunta Kinte.
Alex Haley came into his work, Roots, what became Roots, really, through his grandmother's stories. So we're really talking about oftentimes great-grandparents at this point in the 70s.
Dr. Kendra Field, chief historian of the 10 Million Names Project, and Harvard professor Vincent Brown explained how these recordings illustrate an enormous preservation effort. The firsthand accounts shedding light on the darkest chapters in our American history, yet also revealing incredible African-American strength and survival.
Didn't you have some entertainment doing the dancing or anything?
Oh, I used to dance, but I don't do it now. No, I don't dance now. I try my best to serve my master. I'm trying my best to serve my Heavenly Father.
You hear these recordings. What were the emotions when you hear, the recollections of Celia Black?
First is just the miracle of her survival. It's just that I'm actually hearing this person who had been enslaved. That's kind of a miracle.
Celia Black was alive when Abraham Lincoln was president and lived to see the resignation of President Richard Nixon.
Oh, man.
You remember Abraham Lincoln, President?
Oh, well, they gave him a good name. Oh, Abraham Lincoln. They thought Abraham they thought, everybody thought Abraham was the best president there was.
What's your name?
Kunta Kinte.
What's your name?
Kunta Kinte.